In this video, we're going to take a look at the IPVM designer, including cameras, network cabling, network closets, vape sensors, multi-imager cameras, and much more. Starting out with a new project, devices, including network closets, PC workstations, and IP cameras can be added to the project using the upper left-hand corner options. So we're going to click on the Add Camera button, and now we can add and move cameras around our project to view the field of view that they need to be looking at. We will add in a couple cameras, point them to cover parts of the parking lot here. We can also add other devices in, including a PC workstation for viewing cameras, a video recorder, which could be an NVR or a VMS server, wireless access points, phones, intercoms, and other devices. All these can be interconnected on your project using the cabling calculator, which does require adding in a network closet, which will be prompted in the right-hand side, or can be added using the devices menu in the upper left-hand corner. If we click on first add a network closet, it will highlight the network closet for you in the menu. Now we can add that network closet and place it on our map, and now draw our cabling to the existing devices. So if we click on draw cabling, it converts our cursor to a drawing tool, which then can be used to connect to the existing devices on the map. Once all devices on the map are connected, the closet will change to note that all devices are cabled, and it will provide the total length of cable and the length for each device. This includes a service loop per cable, which is effectively calculated as a combined extra cable at each end of the horizontal run. The default is 20 feet or 6 meters, which can be changed or also be seen as 10 feet on each end, or 15 feet on one end, and 5 feet on the other. Because we use the Google Maps API interface, those distances are automatically calculated based on the Google Map, which includes a satellite version, also a street version, which includes streets and building locations but without satellite imagery, as well as a blank map option, which is scaled automatically but does not include any sort of background imagery. We're going to switch back over to satellite. We also support camera calculations, which will return pixels per foot or pixel density based on the camera resolution, the field of view, and the width and distance of targets. And so in this case, if we look in the upper right hand corner here, we have a generic camera. We can set our resolution to a wide range from quarter VGA all the way up to 8K. We're going to select a 4K resolution for this camera. Move the camera so it's viewing to the far edge of the parking lot, and we can then see that we are calculating just under 30 pixels per foot at the far end of the parking lot. If we need a higher pixels per foot, you can see the images here of a test subject in ideal conditions in both day and night or dark with IR images. If more pixel density is required, if higher resolution cameras can be selected, then we can select higher camera resolutions and see what pixels per foot we get. Our other option is to narrow our field of view, which again will also increase our pixels per foot or pixels per meter. So if we drop back down to the 4K level, now rather than just under 30 pixels per foot, we are seeing 44 or roughly 44 pixels per foot. All of these fields can be entered in manually. So if you know you have a pixels per foot requirement of 50, you can add in 50 and the calculator will determine that based on this field of view, the distance where that pixels per foot would be provided is at 83 feet. The calculator also supports metric and imperial measurements, which will automatically be set based on your IP address or location that you are logging in. And it also includes, where available, Google Street View imagery, So in this case, the camera is close enough to the street where it will actually pull up the closest street view image based on that parking lot that we are looking at right here. For cameras that are further away from streets, we also include some stock scenes, which has a range of, parking lots and office images, conference rooms, etc., as well as in the case of where you may have a 360 or 180 fisheye camera, there are also those stock scenes as well. In addition to calculating for generic cameras, the designer also includes, in total, over 11,000 cameras, which does include end-of-life cameras, a filter for NDAA compliant cameras based on NDAA fiscal year 2019, and we have a lot of reporting from IPVM related to the cameras and companies that are covered within there. And so from the specific models, you can choose and filter based on manufacturer, camera type. So if you want a dome camera, a multi-imager, etc., all these filters can be used to narrow down your search to a camera that will fit your requirements. Select a Bosch dome camera, and let's say we want, because we know we're in that 4K range, we're going to search for a 4K. We don't have any Bosch 4K dome cameras to select from, so let's see if we have any other that we can choose, and we can find a box camera that fits within our specifications. In this case, a 12 megapixel box camera from Bosch. And so now we can cover the field of view that we're looking for. And again, based on that input, we do have a fixed lens on that camera, so we actually don't get any field of view adjustments. So in this case, with our generic camera, we get a basically infinitely adjustable field of view range. And for this specific Bosch camera, we are set to a fixed 70-degree field of view, so we have no adjustments there. So if we want to set our PPF to 50, then it's going to return our distance of 65 feet and give us our preview image of what that field of view should look like at the 65-foot distance. If we look at other cameras that may have a selectable range for their varifocal lens, let's exclude end of life and just select a 3357. Now let's grab something again that is a higher resolution. So now again, we have a camera with an adjustable field of view. And so rather than having a text box, or in the case of the Bosch, a fixed lens, we have a range based upon the specifications of that camera of where we can adjust, and the calculator designer will not allow you to adjust the camera outside of that range. You can still enter in a required pixels per foot based upon a field of view, and it will return again the distance that we are calculating that PPF will be offered. In addition to having Google Maps overlays and the street overlays and our blank maps, the designer also supports adding in floor plans. So we're going to upload a floor plan now and use that in our design. In the top middle here, click on Add Floor Plan and browse to find your floor plan. In this case, the calculator supports JPEG, bitmap, PNG, or PDF files. And it will also check the file to make sure the format and the size is not too large. We do have a maximum 5,000 by 5,000 pixel limitation. We can manually scale the floor plan by selecting this green scale point and putting in a known distance from the floor plan. In this case, any dimension will work and will automatically scale once you hit scale floor plan. I'm going to select a door and say that it has a scale of 3 feet. We can move and adjust the floor plan onto our map. And now we can start to adjust the interior design. There is zoom limitations based on the area of where Google provides through the Google API. To get closer zoom, you can switch over to the streets or the blank map type, which will allow a significantly closer zoom in on your project while you're making your design. Now that our floor plan is set where we would like it, I'm going to lock out the floor plan, and you can lock out any of the objects that are on the map so that you cannot move them or edit them, and you can see in the upper right hand corner, it's going to say this floor plan is locked. I'm going to give this a name and say this is our office plan. And now I'm going to make a few adjustments here. So we're going to place our network closet into an actual closet, and we're also going to place our recorder into that closet as well, and adjust our cables so it's a little bit neater. And again, we're also going to take, in this case, our PC workstation, we're going to move it over to the lab here and adjust our cables for a cable path. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, we have a wide range of devices, including wireless access points, intercoms, etc. And so any of these can be placed onto your project. And even if you just need a sort of a generic cable drop where you don't have a specific device, but you know you'll have a device in the future and you want to account for that as part of the cabling calculator, you can use the designer to add in some of these generic drops and connect them to your network closet, in addition to, again, a wireless access point, an intercom, a vape sensor, etc. And so we can have all of our devices connected within the designer. I'm going to, again, adjust my cable path for these so that we can simulate what our distance is and what our cable path, because we'll look at project exporting in a little bit, which will show how this information can be shared with others, with customers, installers from your company, etc. Just like any other device, cameras can be named, so we can call this West Parking Lot. You can change camera names, any object, any device. In this case, we're going to call this Cafe Access Point. Just call it Cafe AP. And if we go back to our all project items, we can see that as we add in different devices, they will be organized within their specific area. So I'm going to add in a couple more wireless access points, place those throughout the building. Specific to wireless access point, this does not have throughput, channel path loss, any sort of wireless simulation. It is strictly for locating the device on the map where it's going to be installed, and for calculating the cable that's required within the designer. And now if we jump back to our all project items, we can see we have 3 access points within our design. And if we change one of these, so let's say we take this access point that we have highlighted here, we're going to take this and we're going to switch it to a vape sensor or an environmental IoT sensor. Switch back to our all projects items, we can see it moved from the access point into the environmental vape sensor section, and it could be named. So as you move them and adjust what they are, they will change and be reorganized within the project listing. So we're going to add in a few more cameras. And one of the challenges when doing interior design is that, especially with highly dense, closely located cameras, is going to be this overlap, especially on interior cameras, where this camera clearly does not cover through the walls into these offices. So you can, under the More menu on the left-hand corner, you can add in walls, which are going to block the field of view of a camera. And so we're just going to roughly locate walls around the hallways of the building. You can obviously spend more time making the walls look exact. Now we can finish our walls either by completing back to the starting point or just double clicking on our final point where we want to make a wall. And so now we can see our wall field or our camera field of view is being interrupted by the walls to give a more accurate representation of the coverage of each camera. Another concern with cameras can be the blind spot that is underneath a camera, we're going to place a camera. We're actually going to duplicate this camera by right-clicking and hitting duplicate camera. I'm going to locate this within our cafeteria and cover this general area. And one of the challenges with a camera is going to be the blind spot that will be underneath the camera. On the right-hand side, under the blind spot menu, you can show these camera blind spots. The default configuration is a camera height of 10 and a scene height of 10 feet. And that means that the camera's looking straight across a 10-foot ceiling. The field of view at the far end is at 10 feet, and the height of that camera is at 10 feet. We're going to make an adjustment here. We're going to say we have 12-foot ceilings within our cafeteria, but we're also going to say for our scene height, we only need to see a scene height of 7 feet at the far edge of the field of view, so we could see someone that is standing at the far end of the room, but we don't need to see all the way to the edge of the ceiling at that distance. And now we can see where our blind spot is. We're going to widen out our field of view a bit so we can cover more of the cafeteria with a single camera. Now, one thing you'll notice here is I did not complete my wall in this part, so we're actually getting some partial obstruction of the field of view for that camera within this area. So to fix that, I'm going to add in that wall segment there, which will clean that up for us, as well as a additional wall segment at this bottom part here, which will also clean up that segment. So now we can see our blind spot is, much smaller with this wider field of view, but we still are blind to a spot 6 feet from the front of the camera. So what we can do to address that is duplicate our camera again, and then we'll put one in the opposite corner that is looking back in this direction, and we can see that now we have our coverage. And once again, I'm going to add in a few more walls just to complete off our room. Now we're all set. Any device, cameras, network closets, recorders, etc., we can change the color. We have a palette selection. There are 6 colors that are offered to change for any device. So cameras, we could go through, we can make certain camera models orange, other ones different colors, etc. We can select all of our cameras, go through and manually make them orange as well. If we look at other devices, so we looked at some specific camera models. Currently, we do not offer specific camera models or manufacturers for some of our other devices, including vape sensors and wireless access points, but we do offer a manufacturer and model number field that could manually be updated. For in this case, we could say this is a Ubiquiti U6 long range AP, and I could go around to each one of my access points and put in the manufacturer and model number. And if I actually duplicate one of my devices, it will carry over that manufacturer and model number, the same as if it is a specific camera. If we duplicate a specific camera, it will also carry over the Bosch, in this case, in this example, the Bosch make and manufacturer and model number as well for that device. To delete any devices, you can go in 2 places. Upper right hand corner, you can select delete camera, or you can right click and select delete camera, and it'll make you confirm that you want to delete that device. The designer also for cameras offers a feature called PPF zones, and if we look at our field of view, you can see different areas that are different color gradients, where we have sort of the darkest or the most filled closest to the camera. Then it gets lighter and lighter as we expand out to farther distances and lower PPF numbers, all the way out to, if we look at, set this to 5, we can actually see there is a gradient at 10 PPF, which is difficult to see. The line is right about here. Let's switch over to our map view. And now you can see we have our highest PPF range, which goes to 100 PPF. 50 PPF is our next gradient. Then we have 10 ppf is at the farthest range. The idea being within this distance, this is going to be people detection from about 10 ppf in based on IPVM's testing. So anything outside of that range is just for coverage, just general surveillance coverage, not necessarily the ability for any analytics or camera detection of people or vehicles beyond that point. However, your mileage or your distance may vary based on the camera and the performance of those analytics. And then again, we have higher ranges of 50 to 100, and then 100 and higher. Those can be customized. If we look at our all project items, under project options, there is a bunch of advanced options for users. This is where you can enable and disable the camera blind spots globally. And then we also have those PPF zones can be enabled and disabled globally. And if they're enabled, you can actually customize those. So if you have a facial recognition analytic that requires, let's say, 125 pixels per foot, then we can design that out and we can have that automatically set up in the designer to where all of your cameras where you need that 125 ppf is going to be identified on the map field of view. And again, that will be done automatically based on the scaling of the Google map. There are other options, again, advanced options within here. You can actually turn off your wall blind spots even with walls enabled. You can turn those off if you want to see the full field of view. And we have a option that is turned off by default called simple camera icons, and this will switch all of your cameras over to a box style icon. So if we look at this camera specifically, this was a dome camera, and so it uses a dome icon for that model. If you have a project where you want all of your cameras to look just like a standard box camera sort of CAD icon, you can use the simple camera icons rather than the model specific icons. In addition to all of the cameras and devices, there are also drawing tools. We looked at walls already, but we have the option to add in labels. So if you want to put in a, let's call this building 5, if you want to add in a label for a specific building, you can add in a label, change the text size depending on how large and how visible you want that building text to be. You could also use that to display camera names, room numbers, whatever you require a text label for. And again, we have other drawing tools, lines, polygons, rectangles, and a measurement tool, which is similar to the tool that's available in the floor plan scaling, where it's just going to give you 2 bars, but this can be a basically a multi-segment distance that you measure. So our first segment here was 85 feet, but if you want to maybe measure the full perimeter, you can keep clicking around until you get that full perimeter. Click a second time to complete, and now we can see the perimeter of this area here is 233 feet. We can cancel that or copy it. So it's just a general measurement tool if you want to measure the length of a wall or the distance between a couple buildings, etc. There's some more drawing options, markups, tools available within the More menu. And as mentioned earlier, we can share these projects with customers. We offer 2 primary ways of doing that. One is going to be through the sharing link, and this is going to create a permalink, which can be shared and copied and created and then emailed, text message, Slack message to someone to be able to view that project. Or more commonly, we have the option to create different file format exports, including PowerPoint, PDF, CSV files, Word documents, a snapshot file, etc. The more common ones are going to be your PowerPoint and your PDF exports, which again can be emailed, sent through Slack, saved to a cloud drive, Dropbox, etc. for sharing projects with another person. Within your exports, we also have some other options within those project options. If you, for example, for a more advanced export, you want to have just your devices on the floor plan and you don't want to see any camera field of view, well, we can go to our show views from no cameras, and now we can get an export that only has the device locations and doesn't have any camera views on them. We can also have it only show the camera view from a selected camera, so that as we're doing exports, you can see the camera field of view for a single camera, but none of the other cameras will be shown on the export as the project is pulled from the system. So we're going to run a quick export in a PowerPoint format. So you hit export, select PowerPoint. It's going to say that it's starting export in the lower left-hand corner. And now it will give you a status, completion, give you bundled files, and then you are able to open the, in this case, PowerPoint project. So once opened in PowerPoint, you have the project name, which in this case was assigned automatically as the address of the location. It includes also how many devices and the date that the project was exported. There is going to be a project overview, which is going to show all your devices as they are on the map, and then individual camera pages or device pages depending on what is in the project. So in this case, PC workstation, parking lot cameras, cafeteria access points, etc., cable drops, all of those are going to be located. And then lastly, you're going to have a network closet export. So all the devices, their cable links, total cable length per network closet is going to be on the final page of the export. So that is an overview of the IPVM Designer. Thanks for watching.